Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Irene and I love all kind of DIYs from upcycling furniture to making adorable little decor pieces. I especially love Christmas and have so many great Christmas tutorials on my channel. Although it's not the season now, but just in case. Today I'm so excited to be joining a super fun challenge. It is called Look for Less and it's hosted by Yami at the Latina next door. I'll have her channel linked below along with a playlist featuring all of high-end dupe DIYs that everyone else has done. So make sure to check it out because I'm sure there's gonna be so much good DIY inspiration for home decor on a budget. Today I have 3 high-end dupes inspired by Anthropologie pieces and I really hope you like them. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first item I'm going to be recreating is the Foglia Mirror. It's sold out on the Anthropologie website now, but I have a screenshot here. The original price was $348 for the 28-inch size mirror, and I'll be making a smaller version of it. So here is the mirror I'll use as a base. This one is from our local Dollar Tree and it is 11 inches in diameter. I was lucky to have a silicone mold of a similar design to the original mirror. It's from our local craft shop, but I believe IOD molds have a very similar trimmings mold in their product line. I'll leave the link for this mold online. The problem with trimmings when you make them out of self-hardening clay is that any clay shrinks a little when dry and you'll end up with ugly little spaces in between the separate pieces of trim, no matter how well you connected them. To avoid this, I'm filling the mold completely, having extra clay on one side, then pulling out the cast and moving it to one side, leaving part of it in the mold. All those trimmings have a repeating pattern, so you just want to place the cast where it falls into the mold. And after that you continue making the cast using the extra clay. Then you pull out the cast and move it even further, and so on till you end up with the trim length you need. After it's done, I'm covering the mirror edge with white glue and attaching the trim to it. Here we want to use a clay that's not too soft. I actually had to redo this and use another clay as the homemade clay I used in the beginning was too soft and the trim would lose its shape when attached in a circle, so I used a ready-made Darby clay here. In the end, I'm cutting the tip of the trim to make a smooth and seamless pattern. And after it's dry, you're done. Alright, let's see how we did. So the original mirror, which is bigger, costs $348. I used the smaller mirror, which was $3, I believe. The IOD trim mold is about $25 and I used about 1/4 pound of clay. That's maybe $1 or $2. So in total you will spend about $30 in making this, and actually the mold is really nice and useful and you can use it in tons of other projects later. And look, how nice is this? For the next dupe, I'll be recreating the sculptural garden candles. They are originally $44 per candle on Anthropologie, that is $88 for the 2, and I'll try to make them for less. So I'll use glass jars. These had been chocolate-based jars and I'm recycling them and some air-dry clay. This is homemade clay actually. I have a video on my channel with its recipe. I'll leave the link for it below, but you can use any air-dry clay you want. First I'm rolling out the clay into a layer about 1/4 inch thick and I'm wrapping the jar into the clay. Here I'm making an overlap to get the seam as on the original candle. I'm pressing it well to the jar to hold well and cutting the clay with scissors on top to get a nice and smooth edge. To make the surface even smoother, I'm applying a little water with a brush and leveling the surface with my fingers. Now I'll make that nice leaf and flower design on the candle side. To do this, I'll use pistachio shells. I'm pushing these shells into the clay, arranging them to look like branches of leaves. I'm making 2 branches like this on the first candle. Then I'm wrapping the second jar in clay just the same way. Here actually I used the jars that are not the best shape for recreating the Anthropologie candles. They have a top that is smaller than the jar itself, so the candle shape is different from the original one. To get the shape as on the original candles, better use the jars with straight sides. On the second jar, I'm making a flower, pressing the pistachio shells into the clay in several rows around the center, and then I'm adding a kind of a tail or leaves as on the original piece. I'm leaving the jars to dry well, and then I'll prime the candles. To do this, I'm using gesso primer. You can also use any acrylic wood filler or putty, thinning it with water. I'm applying it with a brush all over the surface, including the shells. I'm also priming the top of the jars as I'll paint them, and I don't want the glass to be seen here. If there are dents or cracks in the clay anywhere, you can fill them with gesso or putty as well to even this out. After everything is dry, I'm giving the candles a good scent to make the surface nice and smooth. And after that, I'll paint the jars. I'm painting the jar with a big flower in sage, similar to the original one. Actually, after painting this, I decided the color was too dark, so I repainted it a lighter color later. And I'm painting the jar with 2 leaves, light pinky peachy shade. I've mixed it myself from clay and ivory colors. And I gave the jars 2 coats of paint to have a nice and even coverage. Next, I'll make those little spots all over the surface to make it look like ceramic. I'm adding a little brown to the main shade and thinning the paint with water. Then I'm taking a toothbrush, wetting it with paint and flicking the toothbrush with my finger. The paint will spatter from the toothbrush and the surface will cover itself with little paint spots. You can add lighter shade spots as well, just be sure not to overdo it. I think I did a little bit too much. Next, I'm darkening the pistachio edges, the top and the bottom of the jars with brownish shade I did for spattering. Actually, the original candles don't have this, but I think it will add to the ceramic look. And finally, I'm sealing the jars with a glossy sealer to imitate a glossy ceramic look. I'm giving it 3 layers, drying it well in between. The last thing to do is to fill the candles. I'm melting soy wax. I'm using a wax warmer, but you can do it on a water bath as well. Then I'm placing wicks inside. I have ready-made wicks with wick holders and I'm fixing them on the bottom with a drop of hot glue. And finally, I'm filling the candles with wax. The last thing to do is to cut the wicks and we're good to go. So, the original Anthropologie candles cost $88 for the pair, and to make these homemade ones I would spend about $2 for the clay if I bought it. The paint and the gesso I had on hand, and actually you'll use just a tiny bit of it. The jars and the pistachios went for free, and I spent about $12 for a 1-pound bag of soy wax, and the wicks were about $4 for a pack, and I used only 2 of them. So in total that is about $18 to $20 if you buy everything instead of $88, which is insane. And I love them so much, although I still think straight-sided jars would work better here. And the third dupe for today is the Mooney Ways, which is $38 for the larger piece. The smaller one is sold out, but I believe it was about $20 maybe. To make my own version, I'll use plain Dollar Tree glass vases. First, I'm painting them, as I don't want the materials I'll use to be visible from the inside. I'm using leftover bonding primer here. It's tinted, so the vases will be grayish-green on the inside, but that doesn't bother me much. I'm giving them 2 layers of the primer to have a nice and smooth base. You can use any primer or paint that sticks to glass here. So this is just to make it opaque. After it's dry, I'm drawing the lines on the vases using the original photo as a guide. I'm just trying to recreate the look. It's actually quite easy. I'm trying to make the lines every 3/4 of an inch or every inch, not too close to each other. I've decided to use cardboard to recreate those ribs on the vases. I'll use micro corrugated cardboard. It has smaller scale corrugation than the normal one, and you can find it in some packages. Mine is actually from an IKEA kitchen fronts package. I'm cutting the cardboard into strips about an inch wide. Here you want the corrugation to go across the stripes to be able to bend them in waves and make those curvy ribs later. I'm cutting a strip with scissors, making many small cuts along the edge. And then I'm bending the strip, helping myself with the ruler to keep it even. I'm unfolding half of these petals to the other side. They will hold the strip vertically when attached to the vase. I'm cutting and bending all the strips like so. You're going to need quite a lot, as many as lines drawn on the vases. I'll attach these strips to every line I've drawn. Then I'm bending the strip along the corrugation. It becomes wavy and easy to follow the curvy lines I've drawn. Since the vase surface is rounded, I had to cut the strip on the other side as well to make it work. Later I did this with all the strips in advance. I'm drawing the approximate shape I want and cutting the strip with scissors. And I'm hot gluing the strip to the vase following the drawn line. You want to apply all the cardboard strips over the pattern drawn like this. Actually, after attaching several strips, I realized that it's way easier to hot glue the strips as they are and cut them right on the vase. This is faster and will let you shape it better. So later I cut the strips after attaching them. This will let you make the shape you need. I made it rounded. Actually, the original one is wider near the bottom, and if you want to make that curvy top, you want to keep the strips longer than the glass vase top to shape it later. I didn't think about this, so my vases look a little bit different from the original design. So I'm filling all the drawn lines with cardboard ribs, and next I'll cover them to make the final shape. I'll use papier-mâché technique for this. So I'm tearing a newspaper into pieces. And I'm filling a jar with some white glue. You can use cheap Dollar Tree white glue for that. I'm smearing a piece of newspaper with white glue and attaching it to the vase. Here you want to cover the cardboard ribs completely, especially the top edges. And also you want to make the transition between the ribs and the glass more smooth and slick. To do this, just apply newspaper pieces halfway to the rib and halfway to the base, and that's it. This is not quick, as you want to apply 3 to 4 layers of newspaper, leaving it to dry in between the layers to make it firm, but it's not hard at all. Just take your time. So I kept attaching the layers of newspaper till I like the firmness of the coverage. As I said, it took me about 3 layers of newspaper, and then I let it fully dry for a couple of days. The shape is more or less complete, but if you paint it now, the newspaper edges will be seen through the paint, and so you want to even the surface first. To do this, I'm using a wood filler. You can use any putty or a texture paste here, and I'm applying it to the vases right with my fingers. Be sure to wear gloves and protect the table here, as it's quite messy. I'm covering all the vase with the wood filler like this, and in order to make the surface smooth, I'm wetting my fingers with water and going with wet fingers over the filler after it's applied to every rib. This will make the surface smooth and you won't have to sand it. You can give it a couple of layers till you like the result. After the filler is dry, you may find cracks here and there. This is because of the water used. To fill them, take just a little bit of the wood filler and rub the surface with fingers till you feel all the cracks. And that's it. I think this is so much easier than sanding the surface. Here the shape is so complicated and you won't be able to sand it with any device, and hand sanding is quite hard work. So I prefer doing without it. After it's finished, I'm painting the vases white. Actually, they are white already, but have occasional newspaper showing through here and there, so I want to cover this completely. I let the paint dry well, and finally I'll accentuate the ribs like on the original photo. I'm doing this with a sponge and I'm using bronze paint. Somehow I thought it would work better than a brown one. I'm patting each rib lightly as well as the top of the vases. The last thing to do is to seal the vases with a glossy sealer. You want to give them 3 to 4 thin layers to make it look like ceramic glazing. And we're good to go! So the original vases cost about $58 for the pair. As I told you, I'm not sure about the smaller one's price, and I spent about $5 for the vases, about $2 for the white glue, same for the wood filler, and I already had the paint, so in total 2 vases are about $10 for the 2. And oh my, they look so good! I only wish I did that curvy top edge for them, they would look even better. Well, I hope you liked today's projects. Please let me know what you think of them down below. Thanks for being here and see you in my next video. Bye!